Now, in the early days, as I said, I remember so many people, like I would post before you speak on my story before I went and trained, or like when I was going to work. And I remember so many people saying to me, is the coffee that you actually post on your stories, is it any good, or are they just doing social media really well because I'm seeing it everywhere? And I would literally just sit there and be like, try it for yourself. Like I can sit here and tell you that it's great, but like no one is going to buy it unless they try it for themselves. You obviously spoke before around how you leverage social influencers in that space, but how did leveraging social media kind of change as you've grown the brand? Like obviously there's people sharing it at their own will and, you know, the user-generated content of people trying it and just sharing it because they love the product. But has your approach to social media changed as you've gotten bigger and grown?
I think elements of it, like social media goes through phases. Like where we started, the landscape's probably very different to where it is today. But I feel like things are kind of taking like a full turn, whereas like it's all of the offline activations and stuff now. And again, you're capturing that for socials as well. But that's where the brand and stuff is getting rebuilt again. So I guess rather than being just transactional online is like, how do you get amongst Australia's gone crazy with run clubs, right? Run clubs, high rocks. It's like, how do we get involved in all these run clubs, get down there, and I just be sampling the product? Because like you mentioned, to read that coffee's got turmeric and ginseng and all these other things, like people are like, oh, is that going to taste like absolute rubbish? So it's like actually getting them to try it. They're kind of pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, so physical activations play a huge role for you guys then.
100%.
And I think people went so hard over the last 2 years being like online, and they're like, I've got to be online, social, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. But they're then hugely forgetting about that kind of physical product experience.
100%, especially like we all went through COVID, which then just shut down any kind of actual activation. So I was like, I think that's helped it to rebound as well. People love getting out there. People love engaging and interacting with each other. Yeah. So how do we kind of then get into the community that way?
Yeah. What big activations do you have kind of coming up for BYS that you can talk about?
We've got a busy back half of the year. So probably the major one is like where like we've spoken about. So we've come on board as the exclusive sponsor, coffee sponsor for Sydney Marathon.
Yep.
So that's going to be a massive one for us. It's probably the biggest event we've done as a brand. So that'll be, again, we're down here this weekend. We've got a Sydney Marathon Run Club. So we're kind of activating all throughout the year until in September when the actual event day is.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of have multiple pop-ups and everything going on there. Post that, Sydney Fitness Expo, lots of little kind of in and out things as well.
Yeah, nice. Now, what are kind of some key things that you've learned when it comes to kind of activating a brand? I know that you've mentioned just before with Sydney Marathon how you're not just taking part in the actual physical day of the Sydney Marathon. You're, involving your brand in the lead up to it so that people kind of exposed to the product before the day of the activation or the marathon. What are some kind of key things that you've learned over the years around physical activations that every brand should be doing?
I think one is how you engage the community and get product into people's hands. Two is just consistency. Like you build trust by multiple touch points, seeing the same people over and over again. If you're just going to do one in and out thing, you'll be quickly forgotten about. So it's like, how do you work out? And you can't be everywhere at once, right? It's like pick a community or a channel that you want to focus on and build yourself as an authority in that space. Get into those communities. I feel that's been the most effective way for us.
Yeah, I love it. I think with your touch points as well, like you've obviously got that online presence where you're building your TikTok and your social media and everything like that up, but then you're also backing it up with the physical kind of, you've got in-store, you're in Woolies, you're in a number of different like retail outlets, but then you've also got your physical activations where you're at, Sydney Fitness Expo, etc. Now, looking back at your before you speak journey, 7 years, what was one or two things that you think you could contribute the growth of the brand to other than the product being great?
I think it's having a unique product probably helped us. That's what got people talking, I think. So if we had have launched with coffee beans or something, much more challenging because you're a commodity, you're going up against everyone else. Sure. Whereas it's almost been because we've started as a niche doing functional coffee, nobody's doing that. Like, it gets people talking.
Yeah.
It differentiates yourself in market from everybody else. And then now we're bringing out just the non-functional ranges kind of thing. So it's like now we release the beans, like our ready-to-drink range. They'll have some of them have a little bit of collagen in there, but again, mostly non-functional because then they become the mass products. But we've built a big enough brand that when we then, I guess, take it from what we've built in our e-commerce, in our community there, going back into retailers, it gives us a lot more leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, just a quick one. If you are loving this episode, help us grow and reach more people by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a review. Now, you mentioned that you were launching in Saudi or UAE and hopefully America at some point. What's it been like launching the product that's really successful locally into a new market?
We launched into the US probably 2018, 2019, and we're starting to get some traction there in the early days. So we had, I guess, an okay, like e-commerce was building up. We'd just done a big deal with GNC online, and then COVID happened. So we're on the ground there for Expo West, the biggest natural food and beverage expo, and that got cancelled 24 hours out. So after that, deals fell through. Like the cost of shipping a container of coffee over there went up probably about 400%. So we actually ended up pulling the pin there and just resetting and focusing on the Australian market. But now, like relaunching over there, it's kind of, again, building brand top of funnel and then just finding the right distribution partners.
Yeah. And when are you looking at hopefully launching in the US?
So US, where we're going through the final stages of getting a few, I guess, again, regulatory things ticked off. That should be done within the next couple of weeks.
Which is very different to Australia, right?
Yeah. Like it's just compliance things. Like we're working through like importing regulatory stuff with the FDA at the moment. Not very exciting, but has to be done. So once we've done that, we'll kind of relaunch with a bunch of podcasters and stuff in the US. Again, it's building brand at the top of funnel. We're not even looking at retail immediately. Like we've got enough on our plate back here, but it's like, how do we build brand with people that align with us over there? So it's like you start to get people familiar with the brand and what we're doing. And then maybe 12, 24 months down the line, then we'll start doing more of a push back to retail.
It's actually one of the things Sophie shared with me with Soltonic. Like she was saying, you know, launching in the US is totally different. Like in Australia, they're very product first, whereas in the US, it's very like brand or personal brand first. Like who's the people behind the brand? What does the brand look like? Have you noticed any kind of vast differences between Australia and then perhaps like UAE, Saudi and the US in terms of what they're looking for when it comes to pitching a product?
Yeah, in the Middle East, like UAE and Saudi, it's very much like coffee's just going through a massive boom at the moment.
Sure.
And they're just looking for Western brands. Like they love Aussie brands over there. Again, like they're getting really into health and fitness as well. So I was like, these things have kind of lined up for us. But again, it's having the right distribution partners and stuff, people over there that have kind of built the brands with, I guess, in similar verticals that we've been able to lean on. US, 100%. Like they still just love influencers, celebrities, brands over there. So, and there's a lot of risk going straight into retail without building a brand first in the US, just given the size of the market.
Sure.
Like if you get into a retailer over there, like they also do a thing called free fill, whereas like a lot of the time you've got to provide the product to kind of sit on shelf at your cost and then you make money when they reorder. That's not every retailer, but it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So if you get product in there and you haven't built brand and you just sit on shelf, well, you're not getting a reorder and like that's just lost money.
Yeah.
So very risky, especially if you're a young brand and you don't have a lot of capital behind you.
Yeah, or a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, last question, well, around kind of retailers. You're in Woolies, which I think is really cool because I think I was around at the time that your brand was just chronically online and that's kind of the space that you were playing in. Even at like ASN, like it was only online, it wasn't even in store. Launching into Woolies, I've heard a lot of people who are in Woolies have mixed opinions about being in a like big FMCG business like Woolworths. What was your experience like getting it into Woolies?
So we've been in Woolies for about 12 months now. Now we're only in 320 doors. So they kind of
Only.
rank out of, call it 1,100.
Sure.
So we're in about 30%.
Better than none.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've got a premium product that's priced quite highly compared to the rest of the category. They do it based on, I guess, rankings in certain areas that the stores are in. We tried to get into Woolies for probably 3 or 4 years, and just they're like, functional coffee, interesting. No.
Okay.
It was like, and then it wasn't until, again, probably 18 months ago, like we had the category manager just reach out through our contact form on our website. I was like, I want functional coffee. You guys are the functional coffee guys in Australia. Can someone get in contact? So it's kind of timings need to align a lot of the times. Like their KPI to where are they going to get their category growth from?
Yeah.
So you need to be a little bit lucky in that sense, or things just need to align.
Yeah.
If you're a competitive product when in a well-developed market, it all kind of, again, comes down to pitching product. But again, there's a lot of risk going into these guys, which is where you get mixed reviews with companies. Like if you go in there too early, trading terms, like understanding the cost of trade and stuff in these channels, it's quite intricate, and it can sink a business if you're too early.
And even specifics around like buyback clauses, right? Like if you don't
100%.
sell the product, you've got to buy it back.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many people that go, oh, aspirationally, I'd love to be in a big shop, like seeing my product on the shelf at Woolies, but don't understand that there's a whole heap of terms and conditions that come with being in there.
It literally can make or break a brand,
Yeah.
like getting a deal right with the majors.
Yeah, right. What's next for Before You Speak? Like you mentioned your RTDs, you mentioned launching in Saudi and the US. What's in the 12-month and then like 5-year plan for Before You Speak?
Good question. Figuring it out as we go.
Yeah.
No, so like the cold brew range and the ready to drinks is going to be a massive focus for us. So again, it's like we've been trying to do this for 5 years.
Yeah.
We're now in a position where we've got the commercials right, we've got the shelf life, we've got the right manufacturing partner. So they'll be coming into market around September, and that's just completely new channels for us. Like it's such a different touch point for our audience to be like that. We'll try to push that through every fridge in Australia.
Yeah.
And then new channels, new products, new markets like US and UAE and Saudi. They're probably the major ones, but we've still got so much growth left in Australia. So we'll continue to, I guess, put focus here as our primary focus. And again, like I mentioned, like 12 months time, we might look at kind of revisiting the US in terms of the retail arm stuff as well.
Absolutely. And with your cold brew or like ready to drink product, are you looking, is there a way in which you're marketing that very differently to the way in which you launched your sachets?
I've got probably 4 months to figure that out.
Okay, great. We love that.
Yeah, it will be. Like we'll always be an aspirational brand. So
Yeah.
that kind of like sits in how we speak about ourselves, being not exactly the same functional ingredients that our current products do. There'll definitely have been some, I guess, ways in which we talk about our marketing. But again, bringing on someone like Jack into the brand and the F1 is like having him as, I guess, the face of those is kind of the direction that we'll be going in. Going to like petrol and convenience, that's kind of the market for it. So
Yeah. Love it. Now, if you could go back and do anything differently, is there anything that kind of stands out that you're like, I'd do that differently?
I'd probably have a very long list if I...
Like how long have you got? Give me a couple of things.
I think understanding business models at the beginning, like again, we were hoping to be a lot bigger than we are in a very short time period. And like that's just not the reality for 99.9% of business journeys.
Yeah.
Being inventory-based business, like knowing where the growth comes from, not only in e-commerce, but then in retail and like the costs and the timing that it takes to get there. So having more patience and actually enjoying the journey a little bit more would be a major one for me.
How did you learn to be more patient and enjoy it? Because I feel like a lot of people will say it flippantly, like, oh, I need to be more patient, or like, but how does one go about actually mastering becoming, and I sound very like, you know, like a kung fu master where they're like, you need to, embrace patience. But like, how did you go about being more patient and working on your patience?
It's one of those things, like if somebody goes, I wish I was more patient, well, how do you get more patient? It's like, it's by being in situations where you have no choice but to be patient.
Yeah.
It's just going through the journey.
In patience.
Yeah. It's like you can be impatient, or you can say you're impatient, but it's like in reality, like, are you stopping what you're doing and completely changing and just dropping that and going and doing the next thing? No, well, you probably actually are being patient. Like, you might be frustrated, but it's still showing patience, and it's also teaching patience. So it's like, it's just being put in situations where you have no other choice but to be patient, I guess, and that kind of comes with the realization as you go through that process. And now you kind of look at things on a much longer time horizon.
Yeah. Anything else that you would change if you could go back and wave a magic wand?
I probably wouldn't start a second company while trying to run another company.
Great lesson. It's a lesson
Very.
learned, not a lesson taught.
Very. And it's one of those things, like, yeah, all entrepreneurs have a failure somewhere along the journey. And I guess building or trying to build a tech company was probably one for me.
Yeah.
But again, I did that because I wanted money faster, which was a terrible move because I lost money. But it's like not diluting your time and focus until you're in the position to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I think with that as well, I know like we've spoken extensively about it, but like I think there's something to be said there where so many people get into business because they're like, I want more money. Like, so many people start a business because they're like, the ability to earn the uncapped income is amazing, and it sits with how hard I work. And have you learned something about like the idea that sometimes no matter how hard you work doesn't necessarily mean that the more money comes in the door? And you know, you mentioned before around enjoying the process and enjoying the journey. Is there something that's changed for you over the last like 8 years that's kind of clicked and been like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be doing it?
Yeah, I think it's like I mentioned, it's like, are you in the right vehicle that can get you to where you want to be?
Yeah.
Yes or no? If yes, a lot of the time it's just, again, be patient. Like it's just time in the game. And that's where you get a competitive edge. The longer that you've been in market, the longer that you've been working on something gives you an edge over any competitors, because business is hard. Like people coming into it thinking they're going to build something overnight, like they'll realize how hard it is, and like it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Like you know, like building businesses is tough.
Absolutely. And I regularly joke about it on my TikTok where I'm like, hey guys, just a monthly reminder that if you're thinking about starting a business, don't. Because I don't think everybody should do it.
No.
What do you think is one of the biggest business myths that exists?
Good question. Put me on the spot.
We talk about them all the time. Like, and there's so many business myths, right? Like around, you know, start a business and the money will come, or build it and they'll come, or, you know, you get more time back in your week. What do you think one of the, like, over the last 8 years, one thing that you've heard that you're like, God, that couldn't be further from the truth? Or maybe it's one thing that you believed before you started your business.
Probably along those lines of like, people get into it to have more freedom, and that is right in a sense, but over a very long time horizon.
Yeah.
So if you have a day job, say you work 40 to 50 hours, you can clock off and you don't have to think about work.
Yeah.
I've probably had 40 to 50 hours where I've clocked out over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's like you always need to be on. So you need to choose carefully before getting into something, and you need to love what you do.
Yeah.
Because like you're going to have more bad days than good days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Now, before we wrap this up, I ask 3 questions to everybody that joins me on the podcast. The first one being, what is one brand that comes top of mind for you?
At the moment, probably LSKD. Like I love what Jace has done. Like mates with Jace, and I've loved seeing what has built over the years. I can't go on a run or catch a plane or go to the grocery store without seeing someone in it. So I cheer for him every time. I think it's unreal. So I think they've done an incredible job. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, look, LSKD would probably be in my top 5 brands of products that I own, because I reckon it's about 90% of my wardrobe. But you're right. It's like you go to a gym and you see like half the people there wearing it, or you go on a walk and someone's in an LSKD jumper, and I think that's really cool. What do you think they've done that kind of has made them stand out in the very saturated activewear market?
Community focused. Like it's all these offline events, and they turn up and do it week in, week out. Like I think they've done an incredible job.
I think one thing with the LSKD brand for me as well, like their values are really kind of prominent in their marketing. I think it's something that you guys do really well as well, is they talk about their values, like 1% better and things like that. Like, you know, there's I think there's 4 or 5 of them that they're on their hoodies, they're, you know, on the back of their T-shirts and things like that. And I think having values at the forefront of a brand can actually be the deciding factor between why people choose.
100%. And like when you meet Jace, like they're all him. They're all genuine as well. So it's like it's not something that's made up just to sound good or appease an audience.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. Now, second question, what is one thing that you think that helps keep a business or brand top of mind?
Consistency. It is. It's just showing up day in, day out. Like it's the multiple touch points. It's building relationships, but also keeping them. Turning up every day and having the right people around you. Like you can't do these things alone. So it's finding the right people, building the right teams, and just sticking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, because I love quotes so much, what is a quote that is always top of mind for you, or something that you've referred to kind of regularly throughout your business journey? Like I have one that's like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I say it to myself probably every day.
Yeah. Like the first one that probably always comes to mind for me is how you do anything is how you do everything.
I like that.
And I think a lot of people take that in the wrong way as well, or take it out of context. Whereas like what I think it really means is if you have high standards, you're going to execute most areas of your life that are important to you at a high standard. If you have low standards, you'll probably cut corners.
Yeah.
So I look at that as more of a tagline around like where your standards are at. It's like how you show up in everything that you do.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's similar to the value that we have in our business called paint the back of the fence. And it's this concept of like, no one's going to see the back of the fence. But like if you paint it, you know that it's painted and you're not cutting any corners. And I think that it's a concept that, you know, we try and I certainly try and live by, is like, even though someone won't acknowledge a particular thing or getting up at 5 a.m. every morning to go and train or whatever, doing something that you know makes you better, that you won't necessarily get that praise or reward for, is so important.
100%. Like most of the work is done with no eyes on you. So like if you're doing that at a really high standard, well, those wins that you do have in the public, like it's come from a long road of just turning up and doing the right things at a high standard consistently every day.
Yeah. And I mean, knowing you as well, like that trickles through the rest of your life, right, in terms of how you operate outside of work.
100%. Not that I do heaps outside of work, but
no, but like with your training and things like that, like discipline, I think discipline gets thrown around as a word really often. And it's like, you've got to be disciplined. And it's like no one actually really truly knows what discipline is until you have no one watching you.
Yeah.
And until you have, you know, no one cheering for you. And I think that, as you said, it's what you do when people aren't watching that kind of creates those bigger wins in the public.
100%. Again, standards. You need to have the standards higher for yourself than anybody else can have for you.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Jaryd, thank you for joining me. I've loved this chat. And if you have any questions for Jaryd, his details and information of where you can find him will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
One last thing from me before you go. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button or leave us a review wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast.